In the first 5 to 7 years of your career, you should be able to figure out what you should be doing for the next 25-30 years.
You can make 100 mistakes as long as each of them are 100 different mistakes and not the same one over and over again.
How do I know I'm not growing in my career?
When someone thinks, hey, I've been in 3 years in my corporate career, I have not grown. If you're thinking that, question the thinking itself. For whatever reason, however this world is shaped up, we are bound to work for close to 40 years in our life.
There is nothing more addictive than heroin and a monthly salary.
I have enough money to pay my EMIs and my bills, I'm good. Looking beyond money is something that I've heard from all the leaders in the industry.
The world is comfortable with mediocrity.
You have to, at times, unlearn few things.
You don't have a choice but to actually upskill, grow yourself. Unlike a video game where if you fail, you won't move to the next level. Here, the next level is going to keep coming, right? Hello, boomers. Welcome to another episode of OK Boomer. Hi, Ashwin, Body, and Kirtana for her follow-up appearance after last episode on money matters, and with good reason, because this is also a very important topic where we could really use the perspective of Gen Z versus that of boomers. Growth mindset. So personally speaking, it's a term that I came across early in my career thanks to this brilliant but seemingly very boring book by Carol S. Dweck called The Growth Mindset. It talks about how all of us have potential and how more often than not we end up not fulfilling our potential because of self-imposed restrictions, which the author calls as fixed mindset. And when I read this book, it was really eye-opening for me. It was honestly life-changing, right? Once you bring this growth mindset to the things that you do at work or personally, you realize that there isn't really anything about yourself that you cannot change if you put in the effort. This is a concept that's alien to a lot of people, but that is actually true. And as self-explanatory, it's something that can be very rewarding professionally as well. Instead of being somebody who's stuck in their old ways, somebody who's always looking to grow, who is looking to become a better version of themselves and whatnot. That is what we are going to discuss today. Body, we'll start off with you. In your mind, how do you define a growth mindset?
I'll try to articulate it in terms of what I would give as advice, right? It is okay to make mistakes and learn from them. Just make sure that you don't make repeat mistakes. Like, you can make 100 mistakes as long as each of them are 100 different mistakes and not the same one over and over again. How you learn from what you do. Like, you can do something today and expect it as an outcome of something. The same thing if you do tomorrow, you should be able to do it in a better way. You should be able to do something different. I would say that is the growth mindset.
Right. So different iterations, even if you do the same thing. So hopefully in a long enough run, your results are also drastically different from what you started.
Not just results, the effort or the input that you put in will also be different.
Ashwin?
Waiting for how you would question, but I'll go for it. So, the main reason why we actually picked this line of conversation, or why it's very important in early in career at least, right? All of us, we don't end up in a job that we are really good at. Maybe 10%, 20%, if you're lucky enough, you would just find your calling in your first job or in your second job for that matter, right? But it takes a couple of tries for someone to really understand what they like and what they are good at, and what someone can be world class at, that can give them like either that world class stage for performance or whatever career, money, or aspiration, whatever you have, right? So when you are trying multiple things, or early in career, you would try one or two roles in the first 2 years, 3 years. So it's always important to because you learn in every role. Like the first 1 year of your career, you would learn something. Hey, this is how this is, and this role tends to have a certain personality in you. And then once you switch to a polar opposite role or maybe another role, you have to at times unlearn few things. This word, when you say unlearn, it's not like you just forget something, right? It takes conscious our brain to train that, hey, like there is another way of doing the same thing, or there is another perspective to it, or there is another angle to it. I have to also know that,
Ashwin,
right?
can you give us an example of something that was your most profound unlearning?
For me, it very personally hit me when I moved career from sales into customer success. Right? Uh, Again, the role is little opposite. Both are customer facing role, but as a salesperson, you tend to negotiate a lot. You tend to your customers are evaluating three or four products, and your job is to be the most relevant vendor, or like there's always comparison and you have to stay at the top. But customer success as a role, though it's the same customer facing, you maintain that same relationship, like the core fundamentals are the same, but the attributes that comes with it, right? And the customers are not evaluating three or four products side by side, but what they are trying to do is they are trying to get the most value out of what they are paying. So my skills of continuous follow-up, persistence, negotiation, all of that is not going to work now, right? So I have to think of other things to really gain that relationship or maintain that connection with the customer. So being very honest, being very truthful with what's upcoming, gaining the courage to say no, uh, though at times that's the reason why customers would stay, right? They stay for people, they stay, hey, it's okay if you guys don't have this, but we've had a very good partnership, so we'll just continue. Like that's the thing, like when I switched from sales to customer success, there was good amount of unlearning that I had, in the sense whatever worked before is not going to work now, so I will have to tweak that thinking of my uh, perspective of working with a customer a little bit. And the reason I'm saying this again early in career, how it will help is because anyone in the career will at least, like I would say, take 4 or 5 different roles, 4 or 5 different companies before you decide, hey, this is my calling, or this is what I would want to do for the next 25-30 years. So when you're doing that, you definitely have to unlearn some stuff that you learned in the past very early on in career.
Right. That's a very good example. Actually, very relevant to a lot of our careers, especially in the early years. You think something is where you are meant to be, and eventually you find yourself somewhere else. Uh, a role could be very similar, yet demand very different out of you, right? And incidentally, all four of us here are, I don't know, proponents of career changes, considering we all had one big 90-degree shift in our careers.
At least I had a similar role change. I think Body had from marketing to HR,
Yeah.
which I don't think it's a very common change people go through.
So I have a question to Body and you, Ashwin, because you've been in this business for quite some time and you have the experience as well. So we are talking about trying to understand what we are good at, and even if it means switching roles or doing things differently than before. So what should be the criteria to evaluate ourselves, and what is the limit when we know, hey, we have failed so much, we are probably swimming across the tides, we should maybe try something new or try something different. What was that point for you, Body, and what was that point for you,
So
Ashwin?
basically, when you give up or when
Yeah.
you actually keep at it.
I think more than the what, it is the how long, right? Like, give yourself enough time. If you give yourself too short a time frame, you may not be able to measure if what you're trying to do is working or not working. So I would say make sure that give a substantial time frame. Like it could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be in quarters, depending on what you're trying to do, right? Like one thing that I will always say, whatever role that you are doing or playing, make sure that you do it for at least 1 year, if not longer, so that you're able to look back and divide that year into see whether you've seen month on month improvement or quarter on quarter improvement. So just make sure that what you do is measurable, and that measurable time frame is up to what you're doing. Like if it's a career switch between domains, it'll probably be longer. But if it is just like, say, a different skill or a different, like a project or a task, it may be in shorter time.
Yeah. It's a shame that Sanjeev couldn't make it to this episode, because he has given this advice to me personally more than anybody else, to give enough time to something before you decide to give up on it. I don't know if he has an exact timeline to it, but usually it's 12 to 18 months is what he says, right? Whether it's a new job that you're exploring, new role, new company, whatever it is, give it 12 to 18 months for you to settle down, get good at the craft, and actually uh, get to a point where you can, start gaining expertise over the craft. And all of this takes 18 months or so before you even think about uh, jumping ships, essentially.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think timing is everything. Like it's not about hey, can I fail a number of times before I give up, or can I how long do I wait? It's mostly to do with time, I would say. Uh, like that's the limited resource that we have, right? And just again, my personal thinking or my take is, in the first 5 to 7 years of your career, you should be able to figure out what you should be doing for the next 25-30 years, right? That's again another timeline that I would think of. So between that 5 to 7 years, whatever you want to try, right? If it's, hey, like if you're landing what you want to do in the first 3 years, that's fine. If it's taking you 10 different tries to do, that's fine. But if you see yourself getting close to 5 years, and if you still haven't figured out what you really want in life, or like not necessarily in life but as a career, that's when I would say your timeline will shorten, right? The number of tries you have may be more than the amount of time you have, and all of this is for a very corporate professional career, right? And, the field of arts is something beyond our understanding. None of us are like kind of an artist here, or a sports person.
That's literally at the intersection of two careers I'm trying to get better at. Thank you for the
The
line.
reason I mentioned that is I know a couple of successful artists. I forgot his name. Alex.
Comedian.
Yeah. I think he switched career at 38 or 40, right?
40, yeah.
Yeah, after doing, like, that's like, see, when I say this, like, that might not apply to that situation, but yeah, you should be really exceptional, or you should be really passionate about that from the beginning to be able to switch at that point. Like, it's not like you
That's
suddenly
right.
woke
Sure,
up at
you
40.
have kept working on it on the side,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
You don't
Like,
like
you don't
leave
wake up
a
at 40
software
and
job
then
in the US.
decide, hey, this is my calling. That first 5 to 7 years, again, a lot of this is professional, corporate, company thing. Like, out of college, 80% of us get into a corporate company or a product company, or the bigger conglomerates. In that career setup, or even the startups, that first 5 to 7 years, I would say try different things. Like, even if you have landed a good thing that you liked, just as an experiment, try something else, just to make sure you also don't find something you like more. Right? There could be something that you like more. You never know what you don't know. But yeah, just keep trying multiple roles in the first 5 to 7 years. A lot of successful people, even who I know personally, right? Like the first job and the second job, if you don't like it, that's not end of the world. Just it's all about improving the odds and just curiosity to try different things, and just keep trying that first 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. I think we have covered how time operates in the scheme of a growth mindset. Something else that we should really address is the status quo, wherein in general the world is comfortable with, for the lack of a better word, mediocrity. A lot of what we end up doing resembles the bell curve, right? Whether it's me writing my exams in college, or you people fighting it out for promotions, how it operates is you have people at the lower end of the scale, you have people in the higher end of the scale, but more often than not, 80 to 90% of the population for any given scenario operates in that mediocrity. So, by definition, that becomes the status quo. Uh, which is like one of the biggest enemies for a growth mindset, right? So the first step is actually recognizing and acknowledging that by default it's very likely that we are in the middle of the bell curve. So it takes a lot of conscious effort to go to the right side of the curve.
I am with you on this, and most of us, where the challenge lies is to sort of accept that hey, we are not doing as much as we should be doing at this point. Most of us are happy with 5 days work week. Saturday, Sunday, I'm just gonna. I have enough money to pay my EMIs and my bills. I'm good, right? So I think looking beyond money is something that I have heard from all the leaders in the industry. Maybe not, people who are 10 years, 15 years into the industry. Whenever I ask them, hey, what drives you? I can see that you have achieved almost things that most of us have not. You actually stand out in your job. What's it that it drives you? It's definitely not the money. It's always something else that they are going behind. I think that calling is very important. That will make you think beyond money. That's when you kind of go out of your way to towards the perfection, or towards again correcting yourself, bringing out different versions of yourself.
Absolutely. I actually know this one guy who was in a very senior position in a big software company. I think he was a VP of product or something at one point. Then from there on, he decided to, reinvent himself when he could have just skated by and still been considered supremely successful by any normal standard. But he was like, you know what, I actually want to do more because I feel like that's what I'm meant to do.
Okay. Now, so Kirtana, what were you saying? So your thinking is that money is not as important for growth, or I didn't read what you essentially meant.
Yes. I would like to clarify. So, most of us, when we start, if we start, looking for a job that can help us pay our bills, if that is our primary, that should definitely be one of the important factors that, key factors that will help you decide which job is right for you, right? But I really feel we should start seeing, apart from, what the job offers in terms of monetary benefits. So if we are just looking for money, I think at every stage we'll be making just enough for us to live a comfortable life, right? So maybe if we are passionate about something, if we understand the industry that we are working, if we strive to be excellent in our roles, it's not just about money. Maybe let's take, like, two people could be working for the same company in the same role, but the standard of work that they deliver could be completely different for the same amount that they draw, right? So I think this is the deciding factor between whether somebody stands out, whether somebody falls towards the right side of the curve, or they are just another mediocre person in that 80 to 90%. Krishna, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, there's nothing more addictive than heroin and a monthly salary. That's why I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, folks.
Okay.
Now I
But
just ask the ones who do for money.
So I'll rephrase it a little, which is a lot of times I have seen a lot of people try to optimize for doing work with as minimal effort as possible. So I would say that is the bigger hindrance or the biggest obstacle to one's career, because the more you optimize for less effort, the less work you do. And like muscles, like whatever you're doing, like everything builds over time, and it's like like building your muscle, it's like you build the work muscle that you have. So the more effort you do, the more you work on something, the better you get at it. So whenever you want to optimize for saving time or effort, and you try to minimize your work, it's actually going to be detrimental to your career because you are preventing yourself from growing and learning.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of muscles, I've been reading this book about Navy SEALs who have one of, if not the toughest exams out there. When I say exams, like uh, how you are tested to qualify whether you will become a SEAL or not. So we are talking about people who literally deal with terrorists, and Navy SEAL is a concept very specific to the US military. And there they talk about how all of these people coming into the book is called 6 Days of Impossible, by the way, and a lot of their tests are around the physical limits and muscles in the literal sense that body talked about. And you have instructors who say, hey, drop and give me 50 push-ups, and then once they are done with 50, and the instructor will casually be like, give me another 50, and then another 50. So when these people start off their SEAL training, their idea of what they are capable of is very different to what they actually end up doing. So the book recounts like stage by stage this training, how people think, hey, I can't do this, hey, this doesn't work for me, but they push themselves to the absolute physical limit. And then they talk about how I'm actually unlocking new levers to my own limitations that I didn't know existed before. It could be as simple as, hey, I can't write this blog post by the end of this week, right? And then you realize if your life depends on writing that blog post, you can actually end up doing that in a time frame that you didn't think was possible.
So how do I know I'm not growing in my career?
Um, okay, I'll take a shot at this, and it's very, very relevant to again growth mindset and how do we unlearn and learn stuff, right? See, when we think of not growing in career, it's again your personal. It could be a personal thinking. It could be a peer pressure. You could compare yourself with someone else and then think, "Hey, I'm not growing," but actually you would have been, right? So there are multiple angles to this. Uh, I would strongly recommend first look at yourself and always look at your past versus your current self, not what technically your role entails. Your designation, though it's industry norm, it could mean different things in different companies, right? So what you are doing in your role in your company, like same role in another company could just be doing 10x or could be doing 1/10 of it, right? So do not compare as an industry. So I would always say early in career, if you are thinking about, hey, am I growing or am I stagnant in what I'm doing? It's always compare your past self with yours. And again, this is my personal take.
Yeah,
I don't know
actually,
how Body has
it
seen this.
resonates with what a lot of successful people say as well, Ashwin. So I think you're in elite company. So Nawal Ravikant famously says life is a single player game and not multiplayer game. And I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, because I want to challenge that question itself, right? That's the reason I say this. When someone thinks, hey, I've been in 3 years in my corporate career, or I left college in 2020, I'm in 2020, we are in 2024 now, I have not grown. So if you're thinking that, I would say question the thinking itself, right? Because you could be comparing yourself with someone who joined from some other college and they've just went on to do something else. But in your same role, you could have actually grown. And how do I personally see you track that? Or my personal take here is 1 year is a timeline that I personally have always evaluated myself on, like not more, not less, but 1 year. Same time last year in your current work, if you were doing the same thing, and if your opportunities or the scope of work or things that you know, right? If that has not evolved in 1 year span, very early in career, like as you get to your decade or as you get to 30, 35, that learning will be slow, right? Because at executive level, your learning and everything it's a long-term game. But early in career, again, that because we are again talking about that 5 to 7 year span, you should really know what you should do. Every 1 year, if you are not learning new stuff, if this is beyond salary, right? Salary also should grow, but I'm parking that salary aside. Scope of work, amount of things that you know about the company, amount of things that you know about the domain that you are doing, all of that should exponentially grow. And that's where this again learning and learning comes into play here, right? You should have a growth mindset without which you will not learn. And evaluate this every year. Give it 6 months plus, like 3 to 6 months buffer is fine. Like, don't be so hard on that 1 year mark. 18 months is still fine. But if you hit a 24-month mark where in 2 years, like in 2022, whatever I know is all I know now, then I would say early in career, in that first 5 years of experience, you've lost close to 50% of your time not learning, which is not good, right? That's how I would say, if I were to answer that question, am I growing in career or no? This is how I would look at it. 2 years as my learning gotten significantly better. Like, I'm just comparing me with myself,
Yeah.
and all of this keeping salary aside.
Or professional growth. Like you could have been doing the best work and still have not gotten promoted or gotten these crazy hikes. These are things out of your control at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I'll add
yeah.
one thing to it, which is it's tough to measure progress if you don't have a direction or a frame of reference. So it's always better to set a directional goal. You may not need an actual goal of, like, you want to be, like, say, the next level, or you want to lead a team, or you want to be a founder or something like that. I'm just saying, directionally you want to grow better, grow faster, or like be able to do something faster than you used to, be able to do something more effectively than you used to, or be able to do two things where you were trying to do one, like expand your skill set. So in that sense, if you have a directional goal, it will help you measure and see if you moved in that direction or not. So if you stayed in the same place, or if your movement from the starting and the end point is not closer to the end point, then that is a sign of stagnancy. So keeping a directional input will also help.
Got it.
Folks, so we have spoken a lot about growth mindset. How do we learn, unlearn? How do we adopt this mindset and all that? But what is it actually that I might lose out on if I don't adopt this growth mindset, or anybody for that matter?
For me, there could be a lot of personal reasons, and everybody finds their own likingness, willingness to grow. And like, as you enjoy doing something, you definitely want to do it better. So all those factors are there. But when you actually look at why should we grow, or what happens if I don't, right? First thing is, again, this is a career for all of us. We, like, for whatever reason, however this world is shaped up, we are bound to work for close to 40 years in our life. And there's always this 80-20 rule, right? Like, there are a lot of people who make smart decisions and can say, hey, like, I don't care about money, and like it's all done, and I just like doing what I do. So that's maybe 20% of the people at the max. But for a lot of us, it's a 30-year long-term race that we are in. Like, it's like a marathon, right? So at every single checkpoint, at every single checkpost, you will have to refresh yourself. You will have to like get better for the next stretch. You will have to make sure you can do the next leg, right, until you reach a certain point. So that is that 30-40 years for most of us. And to do that, if we are not pushing ourselves, if we are not ready to let go of things that we have learned and try and take on more, there's this like basic logic of holding only so much in our brain, right? Like, we forget things that we don't use a lot in our brain, right? So because we can only hold so much knowledge, or we can hold only so much in our brain, we have to keep learning new stuff. to push ourselves to get better, to actually do things better, we should forget some stuff. Otherwise, unless it's a muscle memory, like, you will not have the capacity or the curiosity to learn. And unless you learn, it's very difficult to be at the top. Like, again, nature of the world, we will become redundant, and as we grow, everybody expects more roles, more responsibilities, more pay. Like, none of those will follow unless we first climb up, or unless we first do things 10x. So if we expect our payout or money to be 10x, our work output should also be 10x. And how will that be 10x? Only if we push ourselves to learn and grow, right? So to answer your question both ways, it is important to push ourselves and learn and have a growth mindset. And what happens if we don't? We just become redundant. And for a lot of us, it's a long-term game. If we don't push ourselves early on, it's just very difficult to get that muscle later, right? So that's how I see this.
Yeah, I agree with Ashwin pretty much word for word, but I just look at it as an analogy. It's like everybody says life is a video game, right? And let's say every year you tackle professionally or personally, it's like different levels. As you go higher up the levels, the understanding to any game is it gets tougher and tougher. And as the video game character, how you counter that is you have whatever the magic potions, or you collect weapons based on whatever game. But learning is essentially that you collect all these different, let's say, knowledge points that you will inevitably have to end up using as you move through these levels. Whether or not you like it, you will, unlike a video game where if you fail you won't move to the next level, here the next level is gonna keep coming, right? And the more you learn, the easier it becomes for you to play the game, is how I would see it. There are two quotes that can sum up this. One is easy choices hard life, and hard choices easy life. And another is something that body keeps saying often, right? I keep practicing because the day I stop practicing, somebody else who has practiced comes up and wins over whatever contest I'm having. And as Ashwin said, we live in a very competitive space where any authoritarian figure is looking to figure out how somebody is redundant. So if push comes to shove, there is only room for, say, 1 out of 2 people, 8 out of 10 people, means it's just you don't have a choice but to actually upskill, grow yourself, so you don't become the casualty when such a situation arises.
Well said. Body?
I would add that, like, if you are not growing, you are stagnating, you remain in the same place, and people will leave you behind. Like, the environment you are in, if the expectation is for everyone to move forward, if you are the only one not moving forward, it is easy to get lost, or it is easy to get left behind. So the natural flow, if it is in one direction, it's better that you keep moving and keep growing. And that obviously doesn't mean you have to push yourself beyond your limits. You can also change the environment. So if you think that you're not growing in a certain environment, changing the environment may help you grow. So it's like how in Interstellar, like 20 years on Earth is like 2 minutes in a different planet, right? So what is growth, or what is expected growth in?
You could have given
7 years on Earth is 1 year in.
No. I was gonna say, like, you could have given someone playing the best in a state. You can push yourself to the country, or you can play in Olympics and try and get better. But he went for the movie reference.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. As the resident Interstellar fan, I appreciate it. Although you
I think he
absolutely
interrupted his
difference.
flow. Go for it.
I think I just wanted to say that, like, relatively speaking, make sure that you are growing for your own sake and not for others around.
Right.
I think mostly we covered why we have to have a growth mindset, and unlearning some stuff that everybody has learned and learning new things comes as an attribute to having that growth mindset. It has its uh, like benefits, and if you don't have it, there is risk. I think we spoke a lot of ground in that. Yeah, early in career, just take on as many um, roles as possible, try out as many things as possible. That I would say is the growth mindset, right? Not necessarily growing with skill, but trying out different things is the growth. And once you have narrowed down on what is your life's calling, just double down on it. With that, I'll say, yeah, thanks for joining, and thanks for your time. We'll come back in the next one with another career related topic. Until then, take care. And I think Body has something to say.
Don't forget to like, share, and surprise.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.